So what is Tantra? Alright, so if I say this word Tantra, what's your immediate thought? I think for many people it is basically just people having sex in a spiritual manner. And that's really what it's being portrayed as in the Western society. You know, we have tantric masters and tantric teachers and get tantric weekends but Tantra is incredibly vast. The problem is that all the big New Age movement has just made it into something which it isn't. Well, it's a very teeny tiny little part of it. And in fact, I think most of them have got it wrong anyway. I'm going to refer to 3 books in today's video. One of them is Kali Kola by Jan Fries. He actually says it brilliantly in the introduction. One reason I wrote this book is that Kali asked me to. She is mightily fed up with all the tantric New Age rubbish that clutters up those horrid little shops where goody-goody muzak fills the air, spirituality equates with reduced expectations, and people look as if they ate soap all day. She loathes tantric kits filled with aromatic massage oils, scented candles, honey dust, and 10-page guidebooks offering mantras, postures, and rituals to spiritualize a boring love life. And she spits on those who call themselves tantric masters. It's true. It happens all the time. Because Kola, Krama, Trika, Mahachina, et al. Are so much more. More than sex, more than religion, more than a hobby or an interest. They are all of life and go way beyond each single lifetime. They also go way beyond your personality, beyond any personality. I just think he puts it brilliantly there. There is something he also says a bit earlier in the introduction. He actually says, there is no such thing as Tantra, at least to those who live it. The folk who invented Tantra did not call it that. It was other people, many of them way outside of the phenomenon, who coined the term, centuries after the fun and madness of the beginning. Tantra is just a word, and not a very good one. There were and are hundreds of tantric systems all over Asia, most of them in happy disagreement with each other. The more you learn about Tantra, the less will you like the expression. Tantra is so vast, you can't pin it down, you can't define it, nor need you bother to try. If you need a word for what you are doing or a tradition to cling to, you'll never discover the essence that makes you pulse and vibrate with life. Confused? You should be. So am I. And I wrote this thing. Alright, so when it comes to Tantra, as I said, it's extremely vast. So, a lot of people calling their sexy weekends and these sexy kits to spice up your love life and calling them just Tantra isn't completely right. It's probably completely false, but just wanted to try and clear up what this all refers to and what it means. So when we look at Tantra, I've got in Vajrayana, another book I'm going to refer you to. Alright, let me just give you the names of the books. So it's Kali Kola by Jan Fries. There's Vajrayana by Traleg Kyabgon. Hope I say that right. I did refer to this book when I was talking about Dream Yoga as well. And then Aghora, At the Left-Hand Path of God by Robert E. Swoboda. Alright, so when we look at Tantra, we have the Vama marga and the Dakshina marga, or Vamachara and Dakshinachara. These are the left-hand path and the right-hand path, and it's usually explained that Vama marga is the one that has all the sexual stuff. In fact, in Aghora, it says, rituals which make use of literal corpses and skulls are available for those who wish to get quick results. Such practices are part of the Vama marga, or left-hand path, which is the violent counterpart of the Dakshina marga, or right-hand path. The Dakshina marga is meant for those who seek steady progress with reduced danger of setbacks. The Vama marga is described as Shikhra, ugra and tivra, or fast, terrible and intense. On this path, the chances for catastrophe are great unless a powerful guru's protection is provided. The sexual rituals which have made Tantra notorious are part of vama marga. So the whole sexual part is part of the vama marga, but the vama marga is that fast, terrible, intense path. It's difficult to understand, but it's easy to do. Whereas the dakshina marga is that steady, easy progress. But when we look at Tantra as it's being portrayed by all these Western folk who are having their sexual retreats or sexual weekends and things like that, as I said, it's portrayed as this gentle thing. So it's almost like they've taken the sex from the vama marga and tried to make it sweet and pleasant. Sitting on top of a corpse having sex, I wouldn't consider to be sweet and pleasant. It's quite intense. So I'd prefer to call that sacred sexuality. And there's a lot of good things you can do with that, but I wouldn't really call it Tantra. And I wouldn't call it vama marga either. So, right, so when it comes to Tantra, let's have a look at the main book here. So this is Vajrayana. I'm going to take a lot of text out of this book. Highlighted a few things, so bear with me. This explains things quite well. This actually explains things from a Tibetan Buddhist point of view, and it goes into the sutric approach and the tantric approach. In Tantrism, the methods we use and the understandings we must develop are different from those found in the sutric approach. The sutric teachings are accessible to all because they are easier to understand, but they are considered more difficult to practice. By contrast, it is said that tantric teachings are hard to understand but easier to practice. So just to give you a comparison of the two. The sutric and tantric teachings are also referred to as exoteric and esoteric teachings respectively. Tantra is considered esoteric because it is harder to decode. In fact, tantric language is sometimes referred to as twilight language due to the deliberately obscure symbolic nature of its references. Since tantric teachings cannot be taken literally, many different methods are used in Tantra in order to unpack the various statements made there to reveal their meaning. The sutric and tantric methods are regarded as complementary in Tibetan Buddhism. There are methods for dealing with ourselves in both the sutric and tantric teachings. In the sutric method, the real emphasis is on taming ourselves, on trying to minimize our physical activities. For example, when we do sitting meditation according to the sutric method, we do not do anything, we just sit still. Physical activity is reduced to the bare minimum. Only breathing is allowed, and verbally we keep silent. There are no prayers that we have to chant, supplications or pleadings to gods, goddesses or God. Mentally, we attempt to disengage from all forms of thinking, trying to ensure that we are not caught up in disturbing or discursive thoughts, or being overwhelmed by the conflicting emotions of excessive anger, desire, jealousy, and so on. We aim for a complete reduction of mental, verbal, and physical activities. Even in post-meditation situations, the fundamental practice is to always be aware and attentive, trying to avoid being caught up in the busyness of the physical, mental, and verbal activities of everyday affairs. In tantric practice, the emphasis is not on simplifying things. It is not about making everything more elaborate or complex either. However, since we as human beings already engage in a variety of physical, verbal, and mental activities, we utilize them instead of trying to control them in any unnatural way. Another point that is emphasized in Tantrism is working with one's natural tendencies. In other words, instead of regarding our wildness as something to tame, we can use it to progress. When we do tantric meditation, we regularly use mudras or hand gestures. There are many different mudras, some of which are extremely complex. Sometimes you have to spend many hours trying to master them. If we are sitting quietly without any movement, our mind may tend to wander more easily than if we had something to do. If we engage in these physical mudras, it keeps our attention. One can also dance in a meditative state. Some in the West have called this the Lama dance. Dancing as a god or goddess to manifest the energy or qualities of a particular deity, one experiences and becomes those qualities or energy. Verbally, one does not remain silent. One has to use a sadhana or ritual text, chanting and making offerings. In order to visualize the deities, one has to chant to invite the deity and their entourage. There is also that element involved. It is not just a simple case of chanting. It can be simple, but it may also be very elaborate. Right, so I think you get the idea. When we're talking about the sutric approaches, it is the sitting still and silent. Easy to understand, difficult to practice, especially for us in the West. But when we look at the tantric approaches, we are referring to something which is more active. And it's easier for us in the West to do, but to try and understand the practices can be a bit more difficult. And this would involve sitting in asana and using particular hand positions, mudras, chanting or using mantra yoga, doing actual yoga, tai chi and things like that, where we are physically moving, we are physically doing something, we are keeping our minds active in order to still it. And that's Tantra. I mean, as I said, it's an extremely broad topic. But to put it simply, between the sutric and the tantric approaches, it's stillness or it's activity. And both paths get to the same place. In fact, we often use both together. It's not just a case of you follow the left-hand path or tantric path or the vama marga path. You incorporate things from the right-hand path or the sutric path or the dakshina marga path. So they come together and they intermingle and they combine. The goal is to get, the aim of everything is to get to the goal. And in order to get to the goal, we have to use particular methods. And if you find that using a sutric approach and just sitting and being still and calm and not talking, no verbalization, no movement, nothing, if you can do that and you find that works for you, then you continue on that path. If you find you need a more active approach where you are dancing into trance, where you are using mantra yoga in order to internalize, quiet the mind, using physical activities, verbalizations, positions, and movement in order to still the mind, in order to go within, then that's the path you follow. But this whole idea that Tantra is just about sex is ridiculous. And it's, I keep seeing it, you try and search for Tantra on the internet and all that pops up mostly is just sexy weekends and, tantric masters and tantric teachers, and I'll teach you how to make your love life, spice up your love life or something like that. Nothing wrong with that, absolutely nothing wrong with that, but give it a proper title, name it properly. It is part of the tantric practices. It is an active practice which you can use in order to get into trance and use with your magic and things like that, but it's only, as I said, a tiny little part of tantric practices. So just to say I practice Tantra and all you're referring to is having sex, it's a bit wrong. and a bit ignorant actually. So yeah, I just wanted to actually talk about that and clear that up, and hopefully get you to explore a bit more and discover a bit more in these paths and these understandings. Alright, I am still feeling Mercury retrograde intensely, so I might not be getting my words out that well. Hopefully this is over soon. Alright, so that's it for this week, and I'll see you next week. As I said, from next week I'm going to go to a Monday and Wednesday video, so this slot and the vlog slot are going to be combined. So I'll just be talking about things which have caught my attention and things like that during the past week. Okay, so if you can join us tomorrow on the Blackout Chat, please do so. It's at 5 PM GMT. Just check what time, local time, that is for you. And you can join us in the live chat. We are doing the advice for the new witch again, because it was quite a popular show. So if you have any questions and you'd like to come and ask them, grab us on the live chat and ask your questions in there. Okay, so we'll see you then. Have a good one. Cheers for now.